So, I mean, I have a couple designs. I have one that I can show that we've been posting on.
I know in the spring semester, me and my brother, we have our own meeting. We actually, before it even became popular, this is in January. From January till April, we sold pages and then they were like,
I had a bit of nostalgia too. My friend was making them in a wood shop. I was like, what the heck is that? It was like, it's called a fidget spinner. And I saw them so early before everyone else. Like, I'm already sick of these.
No, they definitely overplayed that. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I mean, we just, once they started selling them in like, we saw them like Walgreens one day, we saw their selling for like $5. What they used to make them, whatever, if they fill in. Yeah, exactly. Once they had that, I mean, once Walgreens selling them, they're rapidly making them. Ours were very exclusive. Like, to make one, it takes 45 minutes on 3D. And so, I mean, we tried to make an exclusive, like Batman ones, and we made beer bottle openings. Try to find a way to do it.
Yeah, my friend and I tried to capitalize on that by making one that can charge up and store energy and actually charge a phone. But yeah, that didn't really get anywhere. We really don't have these.
No, it's alright. I like that vision. The vision is really good.
We've done a lot of weird things. We try to make a rare bev business by selling rare beverages. Like when Pepsi Zero, or Crystal Pepsi, that's it. We bought a bunch of Crystal Pepsi before they bought the bag. Yeah. So our brand is Apex Suragu, that's Japanese for slow. And the whole concept behind that is slow and steady progression, and Apex is the top of something. So it's slow and steady progression.
I like that.
And I mean, I do have a couple more that I designed, so I don't really care if I show them off. Yeah. Well,
do you have a social media?
Well, yes, but it's literally just hidden. So we haven't said anything yet. I'm going to be responsible for the store, the actual website, and distribution.
Yeah. Get like a social media, I'll get everyone to follow it.
Yeah. Oh, he knows a bunch of people. He networks like crazy. He's going to
networking is social media is so easy.
University of Illinois for him is in Chicago. He goes there, UIC. And that's in Boston. I mean, Chicago.
I was going to say,
Boston's where I'm
said in Chicago a second ago.
So yeah, he goes there and he goes to Rockford. So through that program, he makes a lot of high-end people, a lot of big executives, a lot of CEOs. So he connects with them, shows them design.
Yeah, I've had a couple of videos on my
See, where I'm going is I'm hoping to fund myself for the next couple of years with this company.
Oh, yeah.
Don't have to worry about that. Yeah, I can spread it out, well, 5 years, 6 years, instead of 4 years tight, study, kill myself.
Like, pray for the scholarship.
Thank God. Not thank God, but it's kind of a good thing my mom is kind of below the poverty line, so I get free money. And I live in Florida, so a discount, get scholarships because of points. 300 GPA in high school, so I love that. Whenever they come in for an interview, I give something. Let's talk about once again. You just love that. And I'm like, okay, here's money. This one interview talked to me about CRISPR.
You had the same thought I did.
Okay.
I'm gonna put this candy in here.
checking right now to see if the resume presenter is going to be able to make it tonight. She had a mishap with her automobile, and we're trying to figure out what her status is. So just stand by one, please.
Sure thing. Yeah, I can put that I'm in the club right now, but I haven't put that yet. But this is fine.
Then let's get started.
Yours looks like leaks better.
I should definitely fix that.
Okay, we're about ready to start.
Because I screwed up freshman year and I went down to a 3. And I was like,
Well,
oh, no.
what we're doing with the, okay, you ready? All right, my name is Walter Hammond, and I was supposed to be doing job interviewing. Do you have a question?
I have to say I was supposed to take care of something before this.
Oh, come back when you're done. But I thank everyone for coming. This is the AIAA Central Florida section is sponsoring this professional development workshop. And the first thing we're going to talk about is resumes. And I'm going to allow plenty of time for questions. We have one sample resume from a very good professional to show you how it's laid out. But then before we do that, I want to kind of take you through the things you want to put in your resume to make it very attractive to a potential employer. Okay, so this shows typically the things, the content of your resume. And is there a pointer? Okay, I'll use my finger. So right there, and put your email address. Now your profile statement. Usually most people put an objective at the top of their resume, an objective or a goal. For example, my goal is to work to be in a company that will allow me to develop my skills and experience so that I can do great things for that company. You never want to say that you never want to put as your goal that I want to be the best engineer in the Central Florida region, and look at me, and you need to hire me because I'm so good and I had a high grade point average and I know a lot of, I did great in school. Or if you're a junior engineer, you need to hire me because I did wonderful things at company XYZ, but they want to know what you can do for their company or for their institution, whoever you want to get a job. So you can toot your horn, but couch it in such a way that you're trying to show the benefit to the people that want to hire you. So typically, after your profile statement, seeking full-time position in, or full-time entry-level position in, company XYZ, so that I can, using my skills in mechanical engineering, blah, blah, to work for your company. And the other thing you can do, well, you can keep it generic like that. Typically, the next thing one would put in is their experience. Now, some of you don't have experience. How many here do not have any experience at all? I think most do. Okay, fess up, guys. So a bunch of you do have experience?
I mean,
a little bit? If you have any experience at all, if it's co-oping, I know that Lockheed Martin was hiring co-ops, I think. I talked to several students that have anything that, even if it's, anything that's professional, if it's something like working at a grocery store, now leave it off. But if it's something to do with, maybe you built your own website for a hobby or something, even that could be put on a resume. Anything that you think could benefit, you could put that as your work experience. But many of you will just have to put your let me see. So you can include apprentice training and internship, work experience. What you want to do there, if you have work experience, is put your date, job title, name of company, and I wouldn't put companies. Well, you can put the company, city, or state. We'll show you that in a resume example that we're going to show you in a minute. And then you want to list your proudest achievements. You always, in a resume, you want to say your demonstrations of success. You always want to have something that you've done that you're really proud of, that could make you stand out above the crowd. This could be, if you're in a professional society, an office you held that maybe you, I don't know, here, I think you guys in aerospace, you have a design projects. You can put that in. I helped design an aircraft, you know, a hovercraft or those, you know, whatever you've done, put it down, and it can be a drone, say if you flew, you know, or if you fly model rockets, I don't know, or something good like that, you can put that down. As your career grows, you will actually have demonstrations of career success, and you always want to couch those favorably, and you want to put down, well, I managed a branch in Jacobs Engineering. Saying, I'll take myself as an example. I was a branch supervisor at Jacobs Engineering, and we got a 97.5% rating from NASA Marshall Space Flight Center for performance. So my employees, you know, that's something that you put as a demonstration of career success. I'm a good manager. My branch helped us get a 97.5% rating from our customer, and that's the type of thing you put in. As you advance in your careers, those become more and more important. Education becomes less and less important, and work experience becomes more and more important. Okay, highest level of education. This is from a workshop that we held for a different set of folks, and none of them had experience. But in your case, if you have experience, I would put experience before education. If you don't have experience, go ahead and put, or if you have something that's really not professional experience, you can put your education before your experience. And that's, there's an example right there, you know, a minor in psychology, blah, blah, blah. How many of you are about to graduate? We only have 2. Are the rest of you like sophomore, juniors? Who has, do y'all, okay, let me see your hands again. You got like 3 that are about to graduate? Okay. So if you're still early, so you're going to be putting your education, as this example shows. Then high school, typically what you do for high school, you just put, I went to Lee High in Orlando, diploma, you know, 2015. So that would be what you put. You know, just you got a diploma and you went in the year you obtained it. Now interests, you can put interests, for instance, I'm bilingual in Spanish, so I put, you know, I'm fluent in Spanish, so I put that down. That's not an interest, that's just an extra thing to have. If you have any awards, you can put those down. You know, or honors. If you're in Tau Beta Pi, I would put that down. Okay? Now, when you're doing resumes, you want to pay attention to details. No grammar errors, punctuation errors, spelling errors, spacing errors. I've seen resumes that had, when I was at Jacobs, for instance, I'd go through, you know, stack of resumes, and the ones that had grammar errors, you could tell right away. If the person doesn't care enough about themselves to let grammar errors slip in their resume, you probably don't want to hire them. Okay? Are there any questions so far? Any questions? Okay. Now I'm going to show you a live resume from a volunteer. Let's see.
Here it is.
Okay, this one's not too bad.
Okay. So this is a resume, a professional resume. he put his education. Do you recommend putting, I always thought you put work experience before education. That's what I
I've only been working 2 years. So,
okay. So,
and still in school.
So maybe for most of the guys here, they actually would put education before experience.
It depends. I mean, how much experience you
I
have.
don't think it's a, okay, so now you notice he put his work experience, okay? He put his address. You gotta put your email and your phone. Address, I've been told, is optional. We told the other people in the workshop that we had last week that they didn't have to put an address, but you can if you want to. I always do, just because I think it's more complete. Okay, then you put your company and your and what you did. You always put the company name, the times you worked there, and then your title right here. Right there's his job title. Let's see if I can highlight that. And then you notice how he puts bullets. People that look at resumes, they just have a few minutes to look at your resume, at most a few minutes. And if you can't, you can't write, it's better to write bullets, even shorter than that, but these are good bullets. And then you go to your next experience and put that down, as he's shown here. You put down, where you worked, the time you worked. You notice you don't have to put, you could go ahead and put month, date. Now there's different ways to do month and year. You can say November, you can say January 2016, June 2015 to December 20, or you can just put it like a digit there. I usually, it depends on how you do it. I usually abbreviate the month and put the year down. Now there's one thing that I want to, when you guys go to work, say for instance at Lockheed Martin, one of the things that you want to add is your clearance. Because, for instance, in my resume, I would add, right there near the top, I would say clearance, top secret code word clearance, which is what I had. So if you have something special like that, because it takes companies a long time to get your clearance processed, your background check, your extended background investigation, there's a whole big, long, months and months long process to get those credentials. And if you have something like that, go ahead and put it down. Okay. Now, there's different ways you can do, see here he's put it. I think a lot of people here could put that right there. UCF, design, fly, build, composite structural film analysis. That's all good stuff. That means that a company can hire based on this resume and have an engineer go right in and start doing finite element method analysis and use CAD. SolidWorks, that's a current CAD program. So this is all good stuff. I imagine some of you right here in this room could put something like that if you had that kind of experience at UCF. Here's some more UCF experience. Actually, could you elaborate a little bit? Did you get this as a student, this experience?
Yes. So all of that stuff there is from AIAA UCF. So yeah, Turbine engine project, I started as a freshman. That was 2011. And yeah, I helped design the cooling system for a jet engine as a freshman with no experience whatsoever. It was just Googling and buying parts off McMaster and other websites. So yeah, it's not intense, but I had this at some conference we had a few years ago, and there was an engineer from NASA that was talking to me about the cooling system on our jet engine that we had out there on display. So it may not seem like the most interesting thing, but it still kind of gets people's interest. Like, wow, you worked on that in like 2011, and it's a jet engine. It's kind of cool. People like talking about it in interviews and when they're just talking to you networking some places.
Yeah. So gee, that really sticks out. So, that's good stuff. I mean, okay, then leadership, AIAA, like when I was in school, I was AIAA, I think I was vice president, I think. And so I would put that down. So he put vice chair for the professional section. But if you're a student section, member, go ahead and put down any leadership positions you might have had in AIAA student chapter. Amateur radio club, whatever, a good hobby like that. Now, skills. Everybody in this room, when you do your resume, you've got to put skills down, because I know you're going to have them. You're going to be taught something like MATLAB, these things here. Don't leave the skills box blank, because it's just coming out from school, you're learning some of these software engines, software, like SolidWorks and LabVIEW. I noticed even Office, right there, Office, Microsoft Office, I can do wonders with Microsoft Excel. I can plot, I can run regression analysis, I can do equations and curve fit them to plots, do nice graphs. I can even do carpet diagrams with carpet plots just with Excel, which is a Microsoft Office product. So you can go ahead and put that down in your skills part of your resumes. Okay? Any questions so far? Any questions? Okay. That's a good resume. Now, I would like to go through some. I'll tell you what. Let's leave that. We'll go ahead and leave that up. Let me minimize that. Now let's go through some of the questions that you all had on your resumes. I'm going to go through some questions that we got from that were submitted to us. And is there? Yes, sir.
I sent you an old version of my resume. If you want to pull that up, you can go.
Yeah, let's do that. We got time.
Just get a little bit of different contrast.
Okay. Let's see. Did you email it to me?
I did, sir. Yes. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to need Ray first one. Where's my phone? Oops. I'm missing my phone.
You want to see the phone?
Phone there.
Right here, Walter. Oh. Is that it?
Okay.
All right, thanks.
And you want to just read this here?
Yes, I do. Let me get you over here. Okay, let's go through some of these questions. Could you provide a sample of how a young engineer brought this accomplishment and results obtained? These could be titled Demonstrations of Success. Well, we did that. We're pulling up another resume. Those would be the leadership. I think that the resume we just went through, it doesn't really have a section titled Demonstrations of Success. As young engineers entering the workforce, I'm not sure that would be a strong point in your resume. I think the skills, the software that you're familiar with, that you're expert in, or have taken classes in and learned to use, that's important. UCF projects, like we just showed you, design projects, that's important. Demonstrations of success comes in later, like I told you, managing a branch and doing great and wonderful things. Employers want to see, as you get older in your careers, they want to see what you actually did, that you managed a project that was, a $5 million project or something for Lockheed Martin, and, or that you got a design award or something. Okay, let's go through this resume before we, I'm going to switch over. Here's a different resume. This gives you an idea. And by the way, there is no magic, guys, in how you structure a resume. you'll notice this resume, in other words, there's no one set formula, magic formula. You just got to make it neat and present it, for instance, here. So he highlights, this is a good way to highlight what he wants to highlight. Expert in planning, organizing, and managing resources through successful project completion. Now, for example, this individual, if he had managed a successful $5 million project, he could have put, right here in this block, he could have put, managed an Aegis missile project for, or say, managed the development of guidance and control for Aegis missile for Lockheed Martin, $5 million project or something. You know, he could put that down. Or you could just keep it short and simple like this. Okay, you notice he put his summary. I did that on my resume. I had a summary paragraph much like this. Because as you get more and more experience, you know, a busy manager, he's going to look at that in about 30 seconds and decide whether he wants to read the rest of the resume or not. And that's about all the time these executives have. You know, so you want to really, really think hard about how you're going to summarize all of your experience and put it in that first paragraph. Now, this resume has the skills and expertise at the top. That's another way to do it. You notice how the bullets are very short. He doesn't have, you know, quality control. Well, if the guy that's going to hire you wants to interview you, he can ask you all kinds of questions. Well, who did you do quality control for, and what was the outcome, and a lot of things. But right now, for the overview, they just want to know, oh, he's done quality control, or he's got system engineering experience. Then here he put his first experience, and this is another way. See how you put what the company is? That's another good way to, in other words, matters. If that was Boeing Company, he wouldn't have had to put what Boeing Company does. But how many here have heard of Matters Incorporated? I haven't, and I don't think anybody else here has. And so he did a smart thing. He put in there what it does, so that the guy looking at this resume doesn't have to do a Google search and find out what Matters Incorporated does. He can look right there and read that. And then here's his project title and what he did. Now notice down here at the bottom, he says managing. See, now you could have put, now this isn't a suggestion of you must or you should have, but you could put something like that right there. You could have put it up here and put manage, you know, that company, $4.5 million project or something. You could do that. It's actually another just as good a way is just to leave it like that and put your project down here in your experience. Now, selected accomplishments. This is I'll go ahead and this question asks, can you provide a sample of how you can list accomplishments and the results on your resume? Well, here it is right here. See how he put his selected accomplishments? Picked as the preferred project manager, assume existing customer accounts, and always quantify, you know, $1.2 million worth of sales. Quantify what you've done. You've got to have, don't just put down you were an excellent manager for project XYZ. No. Put down how much, what was the cost of it, what did you do, and things like that. Okay, here's another one, pioneer new capability development. For a unique project team different from a core capabilities, project manager. That's all good stuff there. One of the things that I would advise, these are fairly short bullets, but keep the bullets short. This one right here might be a little bit long, but you know, that's just okay. Then his next experience, lead project engineering teams and development efforts to meet customer requirements and cost constraints. And he put down, so in this case, he's putting down selected accomplishments for each for each job assignment you had. You could also put all the accomplishments all in one place at the bottom of the resume, or at the top, or towards the top. This is actually a good way to do it, because that way these accomplishments are all tied to his specific assignment. See here, he quantified 1 million, leading directly to more than 1 million in sales within the first year. That's a quantifiable result. What he did, how much was it worth, when did he accomplish it? And that's excellent. He managed, simultaneously supported up to 7 projects. You know, that's a quantifiable achievement. Okay? Then the next experience, again, see how short this paragraph is? He probably could have written 2 pages on what he did, but you got to keep it short. Just keep it down to 1 paragraph or a few sentences. This has 3 sentences. A 3.2 million project requiring little management intervention. Engineers want to, employers want to see that. They want to know that you can work on your own without having somebody looking over your shoulder all the time. So this indicates he required little program management, direction, intervention. He's a self-starter, self-motivator, and that's all good stuff. Here's another one. One of the best things you can put in your resume is that you turned a bad project around. So in this case, this resume shows the person turned dysfunctional projects around and corrected them and ensured program success. Oops. Sorry. Okay, here he established several new vendor and supplier relationships. One of the things he could have put here, I'm just saying, I mean, if the data, maybe he didn't have the data available, he could put established several new vendor and supplier relationships worth $5 million to allow it cost-effective. To allow cost-effective and timely means to support program project objectives. Okay. Okay, selected to establish, that's, reduce cost and improve product quality. If at all possible, quantify what you did in every instance. Here's the education. Now, let me ask you one thing. Usually if you have a very high grade point average, let's say this guy had a C, let's say he barely got his BS degree. Well, he's not going to put on there, well, I scraped through with a a C plus on my grade. But if you were a scholar that had like an A- grade point average, are you all guys on a 4-point system like A's? Okay, had a 3.5 grade point average. That's worth putting in here right after, GPA 3.5. You could put that in your education. Licensed professional engineer, mechanical systems, vice chair and membership officer, and then technical skills. C++ and Autodesk and SolidWorks. Are y'all, I'm going to stop right there. Are you guys learning, can you tell me, somebody out here, tell me what kind of software you guys are learning? Like, the design type software?
MATLAB.
You're learning MATLAB?
AutoCAD.
MathCAD?
AutoCAD.
Oh, AutoCAD, okay, what?
MathCAD, LabVIEW as well.
LabVIEw?
LabVIEw, MathCAD, SolidWorks.
What about MathCAD? There's one other, MathWorks? Or Math?
There's MathCAD, NX.
Yeah, okay. So that, those are all things you would put in your resumes for those skills. Employers, why are they going to hire you? Because you guys have the latest skills. My skills, they don't want to hire me to do AutoCAD when they can hire somebody at less money that has better skills because I'm obsolete. Whereas your SolidWorks training is, it's current. It's right there. Okay? All right, so I'm going to I'm going to switch here.
I will add to that last comment. If you put something on there, make sure you can talk about it, because it's a free game in an interview. I've been asked about weird stuff I haven't touched since like 2010, because it was on my resume. Just because they like to pick out the things and make sure you actually know what you're talking about. I know I have, the last thing on my resume was Eagle Scout from 2007, and one of them asked me how I got donations to support my Eagle Scout project from 9 years before. So if it's on there, they may ask you about it. Make sure it's something you actually know, not just, well, I opened it once, I know what the button looks like. You know, you can actually explain a little bit, okay, here's what the software does, here's where I used it. And that's a great talking point in an interview if somebody asks you, you know, oh, you know MATLAB, well, how have you used it? That's a great point for you to show off, you know, well, I did this, you know, did this project in class with it.
Right.
Get all these skills.
Yeah, and then they'll ask you, what did you do? What was your worst experience? Or how did, you know, they'll ask you stuff. Did you get fired from a job? I'm going to get into that in the interviewing section. Let's see. Okay, I want to switch over here to. Okay, I'd like to go through these questions. Before I start these, is there any questions that you guys have before I get started? Anybody? You guys good? Okay. We kind of answered the first one. Let's go to that one. How old should the content? Well, you just answered that. It can be, well, no, the content can be as old as it needs to be. You know, he was an Eagle Scout in 2007. Well, I've heard people recommend don't go more than 10 years back. Well, in my resume, I went back, let's see, 45 years. Oh, before, if somebody's leaving, I've got some handouts. Where's my handouts? Did I pass those out? Oh, here they are. If you're leaving, I'm going to give you a handout for you to remember. This will help you out. Okay. All right, so the content of the resume, you should always have a current resume. Don't have an old resume. There you go. Yeah, that has everything in it. Okay. Don't let your resume get stale. It should be no more than a few months old. Always keep it updated. What makes a good resume? We've just shown you two good examples. My resume looks different than the two we've just gone over. I don't have it with me, but it's. I actually have a 8-page version of the resume. That's the other thing. People say, for you guys, a 1-page resume, try to keep it on 1 page. I think that's a good goal. For young professionals, 2 pages. For old guys like me, you know, 5 pages. Non-listed publications alone is 1.5 pages. So, you know, but I would go ahead and when you fill out your job applications, they'll ask you for every job and list your experience, and you just read it right off your resume. So, okay. What keywords are most sought after? Okay, let's talk about keywords. That's a great question. How do you think companies hire people based on keywords?
Keyword generators.
Huh?
Generators.
Yeah. They get a big pile of resumes and they don't have people read it. What they do, they have scanners, they pick out keywords. And then if there's enough keyword hits, then that resume makes it to the look at me pile. The rest of them go into the reject pile. Good point. So they use scanners and keywords. So if you want a job in, I don't know, using SolidWorks, you got to make sure that SolidWorks is mentioned several places in your resume. If you want a job in doing mechanical engineering for a SpaceX launch system, then you got to be sure you get SpaceX launch vehicles in there and so on. So keywords, the keywords should be what you think the keywords best describe you. There is no canned answer. Just keywords that you think are important for your case. And not mechanical engineering is not a keyword. It has to be more specific. High-stress structural design or something. Make it more specific than just mechanical engineering or electrical or something like that. What sticks out in a good resume? achievements, you know, demonstrations of success, like you saw where we had the bullets that the guy managed a $4.5 million project to successful completion. For you guys just starting out, if you have a 3.5 or 3.6 grade point average in your major, that's a good keyword. The software you're expert in, your skills. Keywords should be tied to the skills. For you guys, put your skills in everything you've learned, just like we showed you in those examples. What sticks out? What sticks out in a good resume would be the career objective at the top. What do you want to do? You got to know what you want to do. Right now, I'm working with a young lady. I won't tell you her name, but she's a certified nurse assistant, and she hates it. She hates working with patients. And so, well, find a job, you know. So we're trying to do a thing, one that there's some software that you guys don't have access to that I'm working with her on to try to find her career, you know, the different careers. And she's got there's a broad spectrum of careers out there, and so she's got to find out what she really wants to do, and not just, you got to know what so what sticks out is that career objective. You got to get that down cold. What do you want to do? Do you want to work for a big company like Boeing? Do you want a small startup company and be involved with all the pain that entails? You know, put that in your okay, now, what should I do to boost my resume? Do good work, get good grades, participate in, I'll tell you, when I was in college, I participated in every society, technical society, you know, ASME, Alpha Pi Mu, which is industrial engineering. Get active in school, do extracurriculars. They mean a lot. It shows an employer that you're out there, or do, you know, if you've got if you run your own business, or working for your father-in-law doing mail delivery, you know, something that shows you're doing more than just going to school. I was an athlete. If you're an athlete, put that down. What qualifies as something you put on your resume and layout? I don't. There is no tag. You want to have headers like work experience, you know, education. At the top, career objective, career goal, you can call it career objective. Always use lines, you know, use big lines to separate those main headers. It helps, well, I'm sorry. Use 2 lines to separate your career objective, and then below that, just use big print for your major headers like education, work experience, and skills, and so on. We've been through the components of a good resume. The components of a good resume are career objective, education, experience, and skills. Those 4 things have to be on your resumes. You can add a 5th one. Interests, you know, interests, things you're doing that might, for instance, Eagle Scout, you know, good stuff. If you were an athlete, I was an athlete, and I regret not having put that I was a track athlete at the University of Texas, but I could have put that down. The components of a good resume, we've covered that. What are the things that companies recruiting fresh out of college students are looking for in a resume, and how does one put that in said resume? I can just talk a little bit about Lockheed Martin. Maybe one of you guys could talk about the Cape or something, but Lockheed Martin had just won some contracts, and they're hiring engineers. It was in the paper this morning. They're going to be hiring 500 engineers or some number like that. And that means you guys are prime candidates for hiring Lockheed Martin. It's a good company. They do black projects, which I can't talk about. They're doing, I think they're doing guidance and control work, and they're doing some other work. All you got to do is get on the Lockheed Martin website and find out. It's right there. They describe the different opportunities you have for Lockheed Martin. Having a well-rounded resume, we've already touched on that. You know, try to have more things I was in a social fraternity, and I think I even put that down at the bottom of my, so why is that important? Well, guess what? If you're not a good social, if you can't communicate well and handle crises like, and I'm not talking about the fraternities that, there was one that was in the news that, I forget, they made somebody drink too much alcohol or something. I was in the fraternity, the fraternity I was in, and I still am in, they've outlawed alcohol in the chapter house. You can't have alcohol. They're recruiting, we are recruiting, high achieving students who only had 6 pledges last year because we're just trying to get the highest quality guys. And so that's good. Something like that, you can put that on your resume. Communications are very important, and that's what companies are looking for. What qualities do these companies look for in prospective engineering? I don't quite understand that. Anybody here asked that? Who asked that question? Okay. It kind of needs, well, I guess I told you that they're looking for people that can communicate well. Now we're going to get into the interviews. How much time? Are we going to break for interviews?
Yeah, we'll still do the 15.
Okay. We're going to get into interviews in just a few minutes. That was what I was supposed to talk about. I wasn't supposed to talk about resumes. I'm kind of pinch hitting here, so I beg your indulgence. So companies are looking for people that can communicate well, that look you in the eye when you're interviewing. I had a mock interview session yesterday with some guys, and well, hello, that's old fish. You don't want to do that, guys. Trust me, you don't. Okay. What if we're not experienced? Well, of course you haven't had any jobs yet. From high school? Well, that's a great question. I use myself as a guinea pig. I was National Merit Scholar, so I'll put that down. In fact, you put that in your high school diploma, Lee High School, Orlando, National Merit Scholar. Put that on your resume if you were in one of the high school achievement things. Put that in your what do they call it? Thank you. If you were in the National Honor Society, I would put that in my resume. Because you guys don't have any experience, you need to kind of flesh out, kind of embellish what education and achievements you have. Okay, so can I still get an internship like this? I can guarantee you there's students at UCF that have internships. I just talked to one a few weeks ago that has an internship with Lockheed Martin. If you go to you go to your jobs placement office.
Career services.
Go to career services and ask them for is it an application to fill out for an internship?
Yes, it's called a CWIP program.
Yeah, companies are hiring. There's probably others. I'm just pointing out one. That's hiring. This area, by the way, you guys are real lucky. Orlando's a great area. Right now it's a student's paradise because their companies are hiring young people that are fresh in their skills. Okay, you want a handout? Okay, that kind of finishes about the resumes, but are there any questions? Anybody? If not, we're going to take a break. Aaron? How long?
You want to start it back up in maybe, 10 minutes?
Okay.
Okay.
Let's take a 10-minute break. We'll start out in...
Say. 7 o'clock? Okay.
Okay, I'll start a little before 7. If you need to leave, be sure and get a handout before you leave.
That was pretty helpful. Oh yeah, I got a bunch of
Okay, let's get started. All right, yeah, why don't you pass these out? I've only got a few handouts left. They're available. Rayon, I think, emailed them out to everybody. If you didn't get an email, get a handout.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to talk about interviewing. My favorite subject. We're not going to do that. We're going to go over here right now. Okay. Tips for interviewing and job search. I have a 16-page handout. And what I'd like to do, we have some questions, so I'm going to go through the slides kind of fast. You should have been emailed this presentation. You know, Rayon emailed everybody. If anybody didn't get an email, see Rayon. Okay. But I want to highlight some things and talk about them, okay? Research a company on the internet. You might as well not apply to a company of any sort if you haven't looked on it. Find out what is their vision statement. You know, what do they do? Who's their managers? What different product areas are they? You do the research in that company. You might find out that company's not for you, and then in that case, go on to another company. But you know, never apply to a company that you haven't thoroughly researched on the internet and find out what they do. Everything's on the net. Now, one of the things that I want to tell you guys, you know, we've covered about resumes, but when you're applying for a job, guess what the employers are going to look at? You know, now, usually, we forgot to go through references. Let me add, usually in a resume, you put, or I used to put, for references, you put references that will be available on request. I didn't see any of you guys' resumes had references on there, but references, employers will ask you for references. And so we're going to talk about those in a minute. Guess what they really look at for references? Social media. If an employer wants to find out what you're really like, they'll go to your Facebook page or your Twitter page. You see, then they'll go and research where you've been. And believe me, if you post things on Facebook, they're there forever. They're not going to go away. On my Facebook, I can get in there and look at things that happened, you know, 2 years ago. So be careful what you put on Facebook is my advice there. But, you know, whatever. And it's not just the references, it's what you've done on your social media that they can do, find out about you. Okay, all of these are self-explanatory. Stress accomplishments. I'm just going through this list here. I mean, all this is just straightforward stuff. Do your homework. Find out as much as you can on the company as possible. The internet is a wonderful resource. By the way, the internet is not the only resource. If your uncle or your father-in-law or somebody, a cousin, works for that company or knows about that company, that's the best source. That's better than you going to the website because they actually work in the company and know all about what's going on inside those portals of that company. We've already covered about chronological outline of career and education. That was in the resumes examples. Now, strengths and weaknesses. Okay. When you prepare, are you going to show your employer or your people you're going to be interviewing with this sheet? No, because you're being honest with yourself. You're putting down your weaknesses so that when they ask you what your weaknesses are, which could be an interview question, you're prepared with an answer. And as it says here, describe a weakness you work on and have now overcome. Sometimes I work too much and I need more balance in my. That could be asked of you. What's your idea of a balance in your life? I can tell you right now that SpaceX. I'll tell you a story. I don't know if you guys know this, but Elon Musk that runs SpaceX, one time one of his employees they were having their first child. And so he wanted to just take off of work and go see the birth of his, I don't know, I think it was his son. Well, Elon Musk got rather upset. They were having a launch or something for one of the SpaceX vehicles, and this guy chose to take that time to go see the birth of his firstborn son. Well, to me, that's a balance of life issue. You're doing right. I'd go and say, goodbye, Elon, I'm going off to see my son being born. Sorry. And sometimes companies that don't like that, you don't need to be working for them. I mean, I'm just saying. I don't think they're like that anymore because he took a lot of flack for that. But, all right, list of sensitive questions. You got, I don't know if you can still read that. Is that okay? Can you guys see that? Can you see that? Kind of hard? Okay. There's no pat answers. Listen to the question. One of the things that happened in our mock interview session yesterday, this girl we conducted a mock interview and she did real well. But she had worked at a job that she didn't even put down on her resume because the company had gotten their certification removed or something was bad about the company, but it was the exact kind of experience she needed. Well, put that down, and she left it off her resume. Hey, you know that you should have put that. It's not your fault that company was a bad company, that they got censured by their licensing agency or whatever, but she should have put that down. Another lady that I worked with got fired from a job. She was a certified nurse's assistant, and she fell asleep. And this other certified nurse's assistant, her patient had an emergency or something, and she administered the wrong medicine or something, and the person had a crisis. They didn't die, but she got fired, and the coworker got fired for sleeping on the job. So guess what she did? She didn't even put it on her resume. And I told her, well, first of all, they're not, she worked there for like a year and a half. Put it on your resume. Don't put that you've been fired. Just put it on your resume. Employers, it's rare. They can ask you if you've been fired, but they wouldn't just pick one of your blots on your resume. Oh, did you get fired for that? Just put it down. If you worked there, even if you did get fired. And by the way, there's no stigma to get fired. President Trump's fired several people I consider highly competent. All right, let's see. Okay, you guys can kind of look these over. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's a question. I know I was asked that once in one of my interviews. What are the best and worst things your boss would say about you? I'll tell you, one of the first questions they will ask, besides these, is tell me about yourself. That's like an icebreaker question. So are you prepared to give somebody, say if I asked you, okay, tell me about yourself. Can you talk for 2 minutes? Have you got a prepared synopsis of who you are? You got to be ready. Have something ready. They call that an elevator speech. Tell me about yourself in 45, whatever, a minute. So, okay. They want to know how good you can communicate. Sometimes they'll ask you questions that will stump you, that are intended for you to say, "Oh my God, he's asking me an embarrassing question." And they're trying to see how you react to a stressful situation, how you handle it. And so don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Do your best. Let me see. How much money do you want? They usually don't. That's very rare that would be asked, because a lot of companies, they'll already have an idea of what you. When you do your apply for a job on the internet, when you fill out the job application, most companies now are paperless, so they have to put stuff on the job application on the internet. You would put down what you earned at your previous job. if you were a student, say you were a graduate student assistant or something like I was. Well, I put down, I got, I don't know, $250 a month, which was peanuts even back in the day when I was a graduate student. But I put it down, and that's your job history, and that's your salary history, and it will become more important as you continue. Indicate what you're presently earning. Now, I would recommend, don't just work for money. I mean, that's, you know, that's something about the millennials. Back in, a lot of people in my baby boomer generation, we'd work, not me, but some people I knew, they would work for the money. I think it's better to work for something you really like, you really want, you know, that you have a passion about. And that's why it's important to, opportunity is the most important consideration right there. What do you think of your boss? Right here. Don't criticize your boss, because the guy that's interviewing you is going to wonder, well, he's going to criticize, he or she's going to criticize me the minute he leaves his mind. Well, why would I want to hire this person? Now, let me tell you about what it would, realistically speaking, how long would it take to make a meaningful contribution to our company. In aerospace, I'll just talk to aerospace engineering here. I was interviewing once with Donald Douglas back then during Untitled Chapter. And the guy, I was just a fresh shot, somewhat like you guys. And he said, well, you know, it's really going to be like a year and a half well over a year before we really can integrate you into our culture and get you really, you know, feet on the ground and get you working in an engineering team. So he was right. And at the time I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be a year and a half doing nothing. Well, no, it just takes that long when you're new to get integrated in a huge company like McDonnell Douglas. There's lots of things to learn. One of my last jobs I had was with Northrop Grumman, and it wasn't too long ago, and the guy took me around to every department and introduced me to every department head. So it's like, you know, I thought, that's strange, I don't know. You know, so there was like 10 departments in this great big huge company, big building of Northrop Grumman. He took me around to every department to get to know him. I guess he figured I needed to know it. But it ended up that I really didn't need to know all that. But he felt it was important. You guys are really, you know, a good, you're going to find most managers understand that you're a new student, that you're a new engineer, you don't have the experience, so that any kind of good boss will understand that and work with you to build up your experience. Why were you laid off? Well, here, let's do this one. Why haven't you found a new position before now? Well, it takes time to find good work because I'm looking for a challenging job that I know I'm a good fit for, and it just takes time to find that job. This is a difficult task. That's a good answer. Why were you laid off? Let me address here about why you were laid off. I was laid off more than once. It happens in aerospace engineering or mechanical or one of these a lot of big companies. One time Boeing company in Seattle had a sign that said, with the last person out, please turn the lights off. And that was when I was getting my BS in aerospace engineering. One of my professors held classes on what to do when you were laid off, how to handle that, because there were so many layoffs in the industry at that time. So being laid off is not a stigma at all. And don't elaborate. Now, one of the other students that I had last week was a felon. So he asked, well, you know, if I put down, they'll ask you, have you been convicted of a crime? If you guys I've been speeding, so, and I had a high-level clearance, but I wasn't, if you're convicted of a felony, so he asked, gee, do I have to put down that I'm a felon, you know? And the person said, only if it has it, you have to answer yes or no. Don't say no when it's yes, you know, you're lying. If you ever lie, you might as well forget it. If your ethics aren't there, you don't need to be working for anybody, actually. So, so anyway, but in that case, he was advised, don't go into detail. Just say yes and leave it go. You know, they might ask you and be very brief about what it was. You know, don't self-incriminate yourself anymore. You have to. If you were laid off, you can, if they ask you about that, be positive. Say, you know, the company, I had one company that told me here's a good reason to be laid off. The company said that they couldn't find a suitable job for my skills. I was very highly educated, you know, doctorate level, and they said, gee, we just can't fit you for your salary, and so that's a reason to be laid off, you know. That's a valid reason, you know, like that. Okay, you guys can read these 10 negative factors. That's kind of obvious there. Candidate is too interested in compensation factors. Most of the time, there's kind of like when I first started out in engineering, there's kind of like a canned salary, and not canned, but a typical baseline salary for engineers. You know, and that's just, so you're not going to have a great big, I don't think, unless you're very unusual, you would have kind of a narrow band of salary. So I wouldn't worry about salary right now, or as far as compensation. You got to get a job, and then you can worry about advancement. Oh, I want to go back here. Right here, thank the interview for his or her time. Every time that you go on an interview, if you send an email application into a job recruiter, you always thank them. A lot of guys don't remember to thank the person after an interview or after they've looked at your resume and talked to you. Always thank them, even if they don't offer you a job. That's just common. That sets you apart from the, you know, the 8 out of 10 candidates that will not give a thank you letter to the interviewer. Okay, if you made an offer, most of the time, most of the offers that I made were not on the spot. They would always say, you know, we'll get back to you. Now, if they say we'll get back to you, don't go home and not contact anybody. Go follow up, but follow up nicely. Say, okay, we talked last week. Have you heard anything, or how, you know? Don't just let it sit. You got to follow up, but you don't want to over follow up and bug the people every second day. Just do it once or twice to make sure. And most of the offers that I got were submitted through the U.S. mail. They were written. An offer isn't valid. A verbal offer, it can be tendered, but it's not really legal until it's submitted in writing. And this is a good answer. You know, you're very interested or want a firm answer tomorrow. I recommend you don't just make on-the-spot answers. Just say you want to have a day to think it over. Okay?
And I'll add to that as well. When I actually got my job with Jacobs, they didn't tell me what I was going to be doing. They just said I'd be a mechanical engineer in the launch vehicle processing department. So I asked the recruiter, you know, is there any way I can get some more information? Could I, you know, contact the manager or something like that? They didn't tell me who I was working for or anything. Interviewed with 3 managers at a time. So I had no clue what the job was. So they were happy to let me know more information about it. They sent me the manager's phone number. I set up an appointment to call him the next day. And he was happy to tell me more about the position and what I'd be doing, because they want you to be happy with it too. If you don't think you're a good fit, they don't want you accepting a job just for the money. If I'm like, you know, that's really not something for me, they're happier with you saying no than you taking a job and then being miserable and leaving a year later.
Right. So you were hired without knowing the department you were?
Well, so I interviewed with 3 managers at a time.
Yeah. In
one room, and one of them said, hey, I like this guy, I'm going to give him an offer. But the offer didn't tell me that. It just said, we're going to give you a job in the launch vehicle department. Well, that's like 300 people.
Yeah.
They do 30 different jobs. So what am I actually doing? It just said mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
So they didn't tell me anything about which specific position it was going to be for.
Yeah.
So then he called back and said, hey, you'll be working with propellants for Orion, doing, you know, software stuff and operations. So I had to call to get that information.
In that case, if you've done your research, like I told you, your internet research, not just the company website. Get on YouTube. Is a great. It's the second most used research engine after Google is YouTube. Get on YouTube and find out what people are talking about that company. You find out. Get on blogs. You know, search blogs. There's all kinds of stuff. I found out all kinds of bad things about, you know, companies that were on the blogs and not on the company website.
Yeah, I was going to add, going into the next section you're going to talk about, that's one of the questions I always ask is, can you kind of tell me what a day would look like in this position?
Right.
As a candidate asking a potential employer, I would ask that question. You know, tell me about what a day would look like working here.
Right.
So you can learn a lot.
Mm-hmm. Or you can, for instance, you can ask. You can ask. You can ask what are the top 3 qualifications that you're looking for in a candidate for this position. That's another good question. Or top 3 qualities. Who will perform my evaluations? Let me tell you about job evaluations. I did many of them. If you do good work, your evaluation should take care of itself. You'll run into situations where people will freeload. That doesn't happen that often, but where you're doing a great job and you're having to help another engineer over here that's not doing such a hot job, and the boss, if he's a good boss, he will notice that he'll give you credit for helping another. But always be ready to help. You know, as I got older, I would always help younger guys that had trouble. Even if they had an interpersonal conflict, we'd take it out of the workplace. You want to talk at the lunchroom or something. Try to help people out. That really is very. It builds up your self-esteem and your character, and it's good for you as an employee. Roadblocks. Here's number 7 is a good question. And let's see, kind of growth. This you could probably get a lot of the growth. That's kind of a hard. If you've done research, you can see what kind of projects are coming down the pipe. And yeah, you can ask this. Okay, I'm just reading here. OJT, continuing education in OJT. Highly encourage you guys. I'm still taking courses. I take some courses online, and I'm 70 years old. And I'm going to be taking courses till I'm 100. Right now I'm taking 2 intensive courses on marketing and promotion because that's what I need to do for my career. I'm on my 3rd career, by the way. I started out in military service, flew B-52s and C-130s. I was in Strategic Air Command. We had weapons on board. And I won't tell you what kind of weapons, but they were nasty. There was something that Kim Jong-un would not like at all. Then I worked as an aerospace engineer, and did a bunch of jobs in aerospace. And now I'm an author. I write books, so that's my 3rd career. So you guys are going to have several careers too. You know, the company you work for today, it's more and more usual that people change jobs or have different careers even, especially the younger generation. Okay. So OJT is important. You know, you're always going to be doing on-the-job training. Skills get obsolete. I mean, back in, we didn't have computers. I used slide rules to do all my engineering course. We didn't have personal calculators, let alone computers. We used slide rules. They're basically a glorified Chinese abacus. Okay, now these are kind of, I just threw these in here, but I don't think these are not that important. These are, here's one that is. Here's the follow-up. You know, who will be contacting me next and when? Can you please estimate? These are all good things. How long, or should I call you back, and how long to wait before calling human resources? You always want to follow up, and these are some things you could ask your interviewer at the end of the interview. If I would disregard this because, well, you could ask this. If you know you don't want the job, or it's totally no, it's not suited for you. You could ask him, what would you do next if you were me, or whatever. But that's kind of put the person that's interviewing you on the spot. Okay, the next pages you can read on your own. I'm just going to go through here. Here's a 15, okay, I really wouldn't call this a 15-second elevator speech. I would call it more like a 60-second elevator pitch. 15 seconds isn't long enough, so change that in your notes. Okay. Job marketing. Well, have a sound marketing plan. I don't know that for you guys just starting out, I wouldn't look at it as much a marketing plan as just a plain old job search. Use your career services here at UCF. Talk to other students. If you have a friend that graduated last year and took a job, talk to them. Use your network. There's nothing beats your personal network. Nothing. And the older you get, the more important your network becomes. And you can use that to get information in addition to pursuing stuff on the internet and doing. Okay, you can read those on your own. I want to get down here into these career services. Okay. I did a search. The things there in blue, if you wanted to be careful about going to Indeed.com and Career Builder, Monster.com used to be real big. Now I'm not sure they are. I've heard stories about them dwindling, but I'm not sure. I haven't tried Dice.com and so on. But what I said there, I learned from a colleague that's in the human resources business that these companies just gather, they vacuum job openings from companies, and they stick them on the Indeed.com website. But you can go to the companies themselves to get the original. In fact, what you find from these, like Indeed.com, is something that's 24 hours to 2 days old. You can go to the company and get something that's current. If you can. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't use Indeed.com or those, but be aware that they should be just one of your tools to use. Job staffing agencies, those are the ones, they're in your handouts, that are the, I just did a search right there, and if I was looking for a job, and I didn't want to go through Indeed, I would just click on those staffing and let them do the search for me. The bad thing about those is that you got to be ready to move anywhere in the country. So I've used staffing agencies before in my own case, and it's always 10 times out of 10 it involved me having to move to another state to take the job. If you're flexible, then that would be an option for you. I don't know much about the directories. UCF Career, when is y'all's UCF Career Expo? Isn't there one coming up in the spring? Hey, that's a good point. I think it would be good, but Randall, you tell me, or one of you guys, if it's good for you guys to go to the career fair, even if you're just like a sophomore.
Of course, yes.
So go there and get exposure, see, even though you're too young, you're not ready. So, okay.
Yeah, definitely going to career expos, and if you have the availability, definitely go to conferences as well. Those are all really great opportunities for you to learn what's going on in the industry. So.
You guys are so lucky. The Hurricane Irma undid we were all going to go to the Space Forum. Guess what's coming up in January? The biggest conference is at the Gaylor Palms Resort Hotel down there near Disney, and I'm going to be there the whole conference. You guys get into students, I don't know what the rates are, but it's not very much.
I'll take a look at it.
I think it was 65 last year. For students for a week conference. It's a 5-day conference for that. For professionals, it's about $1,400.
Oh.
So you're getting quite a discount. Yeah, it's like 65 bucks, and you're local, so you just drive over there. Carpool's $20 to park. So maybe carpool over there.
And if you're
It's a great
interested
event.
in volunteering for the Central Florida section booth, we can get you an exhibit hall for free as an exhibitor. And you're right there, you're spending all day long standing around with other companies inside the exhibit hall. So that's a great opportunity.
Right, the AIAA Central Florida section is our exhibits next to NASA, right?
I believe I got the booth next to NASA. Yep.
Yeah, so there you go. Yes, sir.
Something to note really beneficial from the career fair is that although they may be looking for people that are desiring full-time positions directly coming out of graduation, a lot of times they can refer you to other people that you might be more concerned with. So if you're a freshman or sophomore looking for an internship, although they're kind of mainly concerned with full-time positions, they know the answer to your question. So it's definitely not a waste of time.
There you go. Good advice.
It's actually a good point on that. When we did the resume workshop, so we were supposed to have a recruiter from Jacobs come out to do that today. Unfortunately, she had a problem with her car and couldn't make it out. But she texted me to, a few things to remember, and we got pretty much everything. One thing she mentioned is to make sure you put your graduation date on there if you're not done yet. So when you apply for an internship or even a full-time job, I applied starting in July. I graduated in December. So start months and months early. We have one guy in my department, for example, that applied in probably October, November, and interviewed around November when I did, and they only had one job open, so I got that job. 3 months later, they called them back and said, hey, we still have a position open, would you like it? Saves them a lot of time. They don't have to interview any people. So they may think of you and say, we really like this guy's resume, but he doesn't graduate till May. We'll hold on to that. Maybe we'll interview them if we have more positions come open. They can put you in a later pile so they know what to do with you. If you just apply and then they call you and say, sorry, I don't graduate yet, they don't really care anymore. But it doesn't really hurt. They may have internships coming up. We have internships opening next summer. Applications usually start in January or February. So if you apply now for something and don't get it, they might say, well, you're not really qualified for that, but you're a student. I can put you in the internship pile. Maybe you can do an intern one summer.
Yeah.
So it's definitely useful to have that, and it doesn't hurt to apply early. Worst thing they do is don't look at your resume or don't give you a call. It's not going to, put you out of the running in the future because you applied 3 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Something that I also personally really found beneficial was, even though I didn't get anything, I didn't get any position by going, I did realize what companies were in the area, and a lot of which I've never even heard of. But they were really interesting and they had a lot to offer. But if it weren't for that, I probably wouldn't have, my research might have not narrowed down to that particular company. So you never.
Well, one person asked me, and I hope I gave the right answer, that if you want to do an internship, you go to the career services first because they know who's offering internships and all at UCF. Is that right? Okay. Any more questions before we go on? All right, I'm going to try to get you guys out of here because you can read these slides on your own. I'm just going to add stuff that's not on the. Let's see. Let's look at my. I'm gonna rush through this because I gotta get to the interviewing skills workshop questions. There's some really good questions. Here's one: why are you changing jobs or careers? Let me go down here to. I'm going to go down here to the actual sample Q&A worksheet. This has some answers. You notice here, this person prepared his career focus, which is the same thing as a career objective. Was ready to answer the question, why are you interviewing in our company? I believe the commercial aerospace sector, blah, 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 has the best experience, best opportunities, demonstrated impact skills. This person did that. Key areas of impact. Okay. You guys can read this. But here's what I wanted to, why do you want to get into the commercial aerospace field? Down here where it asks why you're changing, what prompted you to leave your last position? This is kind of awkward wording there. But say you did leave a company, you better be ready with the answer why you left. Here's an attempt at an answer, might not be the best answer. I just told you that I got laid off because the company said they didn't have, so what prompted you, how come you got laid off? Well, the company told me at my doctorate level they didn't have a good, didn't have slots for me, and I was like, oh, that happens, Or a company loses a contract and then you have to be let go. How long have you been unemployed? Why do you feel your search is taking you so long? Okay, I just went over, during the break, there's different personality tests. You have to know yourself, and there's different, if you look up, there's called the Myers-Briggs Myers-Briggs Interest Inventory, Myers, M-Y-E-R-S-Briggs, B-R-I-G-G-S, inventory. It determines what your personality type is. And that's when you try to determine that, that can define what you really want to do. We work with students in the Orlando LifeWorks Jobs Partnership Program that I help teach, to do just that. That's a whole nother course. That's a whole nother thing, is to do your personality and skills inventory, but it can be done. In your case, rather than doing it formally like that, just think about what you really want to do. Talk to your parents, talk to friends, whatever. While you're still unemployed, see here, you can also add using this down and take, so on. Always be upbeat. Why are you taking? Well, look at I'm taking courses online. I'm doing a thorough, disciplined job search. I've got a marketing plan for how I'm going to, pursue the best job leads. This is taking time. I'm reassessing my own skills and my own interests. And by the way, I'm also taking a C++ program, C# programming course at lynda.com. By the way, that's where you can get a lot of these courses. lynda.com. I've taken courses from them. They're pretty good. It's online courses. Okay, let's see. Be ready to answer where you want to be in the future. Your answer would be different. This is for somebody that wanted to be a systems engineer. Now, the word subject matter expert, I don't know if that's still in the lexicon. It was when I was in the field. SME, they call it. That should be your goal. The typical career progression engineer, or your junior engineer, I guess you start fresh out, okay? Then you become a junior engineer. They're just a plain old engineer or a member of the technical staff, which is what I was. I was a member of technical staff grade 2 or grade 3. Then I was principal systems analyst, but that's really like still engineer. Then you eventually work up to senior engineer, which is like, you got to have 15, 20 years experience, and you become a senior engineer. Then after that, you can be a subject matter expert, or SME, for that company in a certain field. Or you can go into management. And I'll tell you, when you get into the field, you better be sure you want to go into management before you go into management, or you better be sure you want to stay in engineering. In other words, I think it'll become more and more obvious to each one of you where you want to go. You can go management, you can go engineering. You can cross the two a little bit, but what I did in my case, I started out engineering, senior engineer, went into management, tried that for a while, and went back into engineering. Because I wasn't really wanting to do a career in management. But you guys, it might be different. Maybe you go into management and you go right up the management ladder. And companies have all kinds of grades. A company like Boeing will have categories of engineers. I forget what it was at Sperta, but I think they had categories, or at Jacobs, they have categories like, engineer level 2 or something, 3, 4, 5.
We just have a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, it's a bunch of numbers, exactly. Basically, it's just a way for human resources to give you a bonus increase, a salary increase by your grade. Here's a good one. Everybody has pet peeves. What are yours? Always make it positive. Say you hate wasting valuable asset. Don't say, well, my pet peeve is having to work with a loudmouth in the workplace, really obnoxious. Well, maybe the guy that's interviewing you is a very extroverted, loudmouth kind of person. He's saying, well, I don't want to hire him if he says he gets pissed off at people that are loud in the office. I'm just saying. But, keep it positive like this. Success. Everybody likes to criticize. You guys can be comforted that I will bet you a lot of money that you probably will never be asked this question. But you should be ready for an answer in case you do get asked. In all my interviews, I was never asked, what do people criticize in you? But you should know how to respond if you were asked. Do your homework. Okay, here's a good one. Describe for me where you have any weaknesses in your own. You may be asked this. You can always talk about your strengths. You know, well, I'm a good student, National Merit Scholar in high school. I'm a leader in campus activities. I'm this, I'm that. I'm very broadly experienced in education. But then they could ask you, what are your weaknesses? What do you not do so well? So see how this is worded positively? Instead of saying, well, I'm not a very good engineer, this person said, I wouldn't understand all aspects of a project I'm assigned. Always, or if they ask you, tell me about a project that failed, and you could say, well, this project failed. The customer kept changing the requirements, and it just got out of hand, and yada yada. But they don't always do it positive. Well, I either transitioned over to another project, or I've helped bail this project out and bring it up to speed, or something. Try to keep everything positive. Don't ever say, well, that was a crappy project and I just quit. That doesn't make you look too good in front of an interviewer that's asking you a very embarrassing question. Relocatable references. One time I made the mistake of not choosing my references wisely, so you guys are going to benefit from my experience. A couple of the references I used, I did not check it out with them, and it didn't turn out too well. So, why? You don't ever just put somebody down with, that you haven't said, hey, would you mind if I use you as a reference? I work with you, my job performance, and like that. And make sure it's okay with the person that you're going to use them as a reference on your job application. And that they'll give you a good if you had an argument with somebody, well, duh, you don't want to use them as a reference. Obstacles. This is a good question. What has been the greatest obstacle in your career? What can you offer us that someone else cannot? That's a hard question right there, folks. Because in a highly competitive, like when I was trying to get work, when there were layoffs all over the place, and you're lucky to even have a job, they would ask you this, well, we got 10 guys lined up for this position. What makes you stand out? Why would I want to hire you? That's a hard question. And here's an answer. Work well under stress. Biggest crisis in your career? Oh, that's another tough one. Have you ever been fired? Well, let me go back to biggest crisis in your career. Be honest. Now, if you get put on the spot, let's say if you have been fired, never lie. I was let go. The company couldn't find work for me that suited my skills, so I was laid off. Sorry. Be honest. A good interviewer and a good company would appreciate honesty and so on. I guess I can give you guys another war story. This just happened to me. I was being, I told you guys I was doing marketing and promotion and taking courses in that. And this guy from a company, I won't tell you the name, but it's a company in California, who called me and tried to sell me stuff. And I kept saying, no, I'm not, I don't want that. It kept bugging me, and I was about to say yes, finally. He was trying to sell me some marketing plan or something. And I got a call like the next day from one of their managers in that company that said, we have this guy, bringing him up on criminal charges because he's deceptive and he's doing this and that, and we want to know if anything happened with you. I said, no, but I'm glad you told. So that really happened. There's dishonest people out there, so be careful. This guy was brought up on criminal charges for being deceptive and not being a good salesman. He was being basically lying about the things he was trying to sell. Okay. All right. Explain the circumstances. If you have been fired, maybe you're asked to compromise your ethics. Relate extenuating circumstances, especially what you learned from the experience and your positive path moving forward, right there. There's 5 things that make you better than anybody else. How did you handle an incident that made you angry? Now this happened, this can happen, for instance, I hate to throw a barb at NASA, but back in the day, NASA would change projects and unfund things, but I was taking ownership of these decisions and executing them on my own, and I would do the same for you. One of the things that managers would really, really like to see an employee, a prospective employee, is you accept the job that he gives you as you take ownership of that job. You take responsibility and as if it was your own, and you do the best job that you can. I've never been asked what do you really want to do in life. That's kind of a strange question. Why do you want to change careers? Some of you guys are going to change careers. I would say the majority, more than half of you, are probably going to change a career. I've done it 3 times. So, you know, a military officer, engineer, and author. You guys will probably be the same way. So why do you change careers? I see myself as in a career transition. I desire more difficult and challenging problems so I can provide superior analytical solutions to you as my employer. This would look really good as an objective in the top of your resume. I'm equipped to provide superior analytical solutions to SpaceX or to Jacobs Engineering. You know, always have what you can do for them. Don't tell them what they can do for you. Ask what they can do for you. I had one of a recruiter at Marriott Hotel said she was tired. She was tired of having millennials ask her, "Well, what are you going to do for me?" She said that they had 6.5 million applicants, and they only accept 4% of them. 4% of them actually get offered a job at Marriott, and that she was, you know, millennials were always asking, "Well, you know, what is my pay? You know, what are you going to do for me? You know, how much money am I going to get?" And you know, like that. So try to catch it more. Here's what can I do for your company. I can provide you superior analytical solutions. I have the skills mix to do superior analysis and so on. Why did you leave here's a good answer to, I have left my previous employer to find the best job possible that matches mine. Okay? Well, that's pretty much the end of my, it's getting time. Oh, I need to, if you got any questions about these, before I get into the last part, which is answering these interview questions. I wanted to do that before we go. We've only got like 7 minutes. How to keep your cool. Just keep your cool. You can practice in front of a friend or something. I don't know. Never get flustered when you ask an embarrassing question. You know, just try to keep your cool. In my case, I found it great that I could join a social fraternity to help me keep my cool, because I was asked to be uncool all the time as a pledge. And but in your case, do whatever it takes to keep your cool, and don't get make a great first impression. Look people in the eye, firm handshake. Be ready with that, you know, 1 to 2 minute elevator speech. Tell them about yourself. Listen. In fact, there's some things here I was going to show you guys. It says in the course I was taking, or that I was teaching. Let's see. Be quick to. There's 3 things you guys need to remember. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. That's part of that keeping your cool. Good questions to ask. Okay, your handout has plenty of good questions. In fact, these are more than, you know, that's enough questions to. I mean, if you can think of some on your own, by all means, but always ask. If the interviewer doesn't address one of your key skills, bring it up even if it isn't a question. If you have some skill that you need him to know, say, yeah, and by the way, I'd like to really tell you that I designed that airplane that drone, and I was the materials engineer for that at UCF, and you know, I did this, I pulled the team together. You know, even if he didn't ask you that, you volunteer that, because that makes you that's a thing you want to. And a positive tone. Use a positive tone. Don't use a negative tone. You're going to work for bad bosses. I have. And you're going to work for a lot of good bosses, hopefully more good bosses than bad bosses. Just like old Dilbert in the cartoons, you know. If you work for a bad boss, do what he says to do. Do your best. I had one boss that would tell me, well, I told you to do A, B, C, and D. And you didn't do A, B, C, and D. And I did do A, B. He was basically, I don't know what was wrong with his brain, but I did do A, B, C, and D. But I didn't tell him, well, you're wrong. I did do A, B, and C, and D. I just said, okay, sir, well, what do you recommend? I just I did my job, and eventually I got another job away from that boss because he actually wasn't a good boss. But I didn't quit, and I didn't talk bad about it behind his back. What tone? Let's see. How to hold yourself? Well, how to hold yourself? What kind of question is that? I guess if you're socially awkward, I don't know, practice talking with friends. I don't know how to hold yourself. I have no experience with a particular job. Is it all right to still apply this for training? Due to this field being very brain, are there ways to promote emotional growth such as bonding? Well, actually, yes. It depends on the job. In aerospace or mechanical, electrical, or civil engineering, we kind of live in a dry field. We don't work for an emotionally baggaged company typically. But, for instance, that job I had at Northrop Grumman, this employee had, one of the employers I worked with had, what's that thing, not altruism, autism? He was autistic. And he had problems psychologically. And so I had to kind of work with him and sort of bond with him, you know, help him out, lend him a helping hand. So you guys are going to have emotional, you know, there's, I happen to be a very emotional person. Some of you may not be. So you're going to grow emotionally. If being caught up too much in work, SpaceX has been known to kind of ask a lot of its employees, like, you know, long hours. I'm not sure that's true across the company or if they've changed. It used to be that way. I recommend you have a work-life balance. I had one boss once. I'll tell you the worst story. I had a boss. I won't tell you what company, but I think y'all, anyway, I won't tell the company. But he said, well, I go by the school and they're never in session. There's nobody, you know, the school looks, is there any students going on? Well, he would go to work before 7 to go to a manager's meeting before the school even opened. And he would work till 9:30 at night. Every night, most nights. That's not a work-life balance, guys. That's big. And I don't think the guy had to do that. You know, in the job he had, I kind of worked under him and did quite well, and didn't have to work like that, you know. I mean, anyway. All right. Flaws interviewing, we've covered that. We've talked about when they ask you, what is your weaknesses? What questions can I expect? They're in your handouts. Applying research skills to job readiness, I don't understand. I guess if you're doing research, put it on your resume. That, you know, that qualifies as experience. Any questions from anybody?
Question over there.
Yes.
Yeah, so earlier you actually brought up a good point with first references in the social media. And you said that employee would look at social media as like a reference. Well, what if you don't have like a presence in social media? Like me, for example, I don't have a Facebook account. So would that be an advantage or a constraint when it comes to references?
Okay, I recommend you get a LinkedIn account I have a LinkedIn account. LinkedIn is better than Facebook for professional. It's more like a professional. Now, you asked me, should you get are you asking me, should I get a Facebook account? And what's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with Facebook. You can get one or not as you wish, but be aware that they will look on social media. Some companies, not all, and maybe not even most, they may investigate you, especially the higher up you go, the more intense it is. young people like you guys don't worry about it. So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Facebook is great. Twitter, I'm not a big Twitter person.
What if you're just not really present on that? Like, what if would companies see it negatively that you're not present on certain social medias?
No, I wouldn't think so. Would you?
I don't think they're going to see it negatively. It's more of a, like we have a few people at work that don't have Facebooks,
Right.
even though they're around our age.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely more of a negative thing if you put something bad on it. Like, you know, if there's pictures of you committing a felony on there, not good. They're not going to care, you know, if you have a picture from you tailgating at UCF. They're not going to be like, oh my God, this guy, you know, drank a beer once. That's not hireable. They're looking for, basically, is this person like the kind of person that's going to fit in with our company, and our, you know, is this someone we trust?
Right.
I don't think I have any friends on Facebook that they would have a problem with.
Right.
I don't know any examples of that, but I know they do check and look there.
Yeah.
And like, if you look on LinkedIn, you can actually see who's seen your account. Pretty much every interview I've had people from that company pinging my LinkedIn account before my interview. So that one they definitely check.
Yes.
And it's basically a resume. Yeah. So that's your opportunity to show pictures and videos of your stuff. I have pictures of me on the Vomit Comet in there from a research trip I did, pictures of the jet engine we built with AIAA, airplanes. That's your chance to kind of show off your cool stuff and get something in their mind. Like, they're going to look through, you know, okay, this sounds kind of cool. Look through your LinkedIn. That's a really cool airplane and jet engine. That's kind of neat. You know, yeah, I want to interview this guy. So it can definitely help you, but I don't think they're going to say, you don't have a LinkedIn, like you're not going to get hired. It's just, you know, an extra little thing to make you stand out and look good to them.
It's like a networking thing. But about LinkedIn, you can also get on LinkedIn and do a search for managers or for supervisors. You can actually find I think I'm not that expert, but I think you can, if you want to work for a company, you can find out who's on LinkedIn from that company, I think.
Yeah.
And
you can search by companies. If you get the information for certain managers, you can, you know, look at them on LinkedIn and see what they're doing. And then just be aware they can see that you've done that. It tells you every time you look at someone's account. So you don't want to just, you know, go spamming a bunch of accounts.
You can't hide in social.
Yeah, you can't, especially on that one. It's made to show you. But, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing to look into it a little bit. Like, it's,
right.
You know, I looked up a manager when I got his card one time. Like, you know, oh, look at this guy's account and see what he does. You know, learn a bit more about the company. In worst case, they say, hey, why did you look at my LinkedIn? Well, I wanted to learn a bit more about the company and what kind of position.
In fact, that would be a plus. He should say thank you.
It just makes you look better.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it can't hurt you unless you do something really stupid.
Good point.
Don't put your picture with you and all your, you know, terrorist pals or something on there. That's gonna come up in a background check. But, you know, stupid little stuff in college, they're not gonna care about as long as you're not committing crimes.
Right.
You know, don't post pictures of that. And the police use that too, so that's stupid anyway.
Good question.
They go in there all the time.
Yes, sir.
You said you had to change jobs a lot because aerospace engineering was kind of like, I don't know, like industry changes a lot, how many jobs there are. Is there any significant benefit to dual majoring in like mechanical engineering?
Yes.
Aerospace? Or
Good question. The reason I changed jobs a lot was because of my job environment in Huntsville, Alabama. There was very much of a turnover. For instance, I went to work for Teledyne Brown Engineering, and just in the first few months, you know, 2 or 3 people in my little brand, in my little group, changed, and I thought, this is strange. And then I saw this turnover over here, and the boss, it was just high turnover. Just because in Huntsville, that happened to be. It's not Orlando. They had all these contractors that had short-term contracts, 1 or 2 year contracts over. Then the employees, well, what the employees did, they would work for, say, the U.S. Army, AMCON, Army Missile Command or something. Well, the contract would change. They would go with the contract to a different company and work for that same customer. So in my resume, instead of saying I changed jobs with company XYZ, I'll put, well, I worked for AMCON, Army Missile Command for, 12 years, and I just put all the things I did, but I didn't put that I change jobs. So it depends on, here in Orlando, I don't think it's that way. Did I? So you probably will have to change jobs at some point. It used to be, I think they still have 401k plans, because it used to be that companies would offer you a pension expecting you to be a lifelong employee for them, like Boeing or something. And now it's more like you have a 401k, which is a savings plan. You put in some money every month or every paycheck into that plan. and that's your sort of retirement. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Well, it was just like, is there any added benefit to adding mechanical?
Oh yes, there is. When I was an undergraduate, I went to University of Texas at Arlington, and I had aerospace, and I took a mechanical minor. I took a lot of mechanical engineering courses. It was great because I ended up my first job. I used more mechanical than aerospace, a lot more. The same thing with electrical. Later on in my career, I didn't get into electrical, and I was sorry I didn't take more electrical engineering courses. But I got an MBA degree because I had thought I wanted to go try business. I learned a lot. The MBA was good because it taught me, it let me see things from a management's view at a company of how they had to do profit and loss, and how the flow, cash flows and things work. I learned a lot. It made me more astute into how the constraints that management works under, and having to meet budget and do all this, and how accounting works and all that. In your case, maybe you just want to take courses, and you could get a master's degree in a different engineering discipline. You could do that. I think most of your work can transfer over. Okay? I consider that for you. I don't know if that answers. Anybody else? We're about done here, guys. I think it's time to, I don't know what you guys do for going to the beer tour. Let's see, you got class tomorrow, don't you? Well, it's been good talking to you. I'm very impressed with you.